Looks like it's live.
Yeah, I think we're up. So this is our first Fireside Chat or live stream, and we will be keeping these live streams published on the Volition YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on Twitch or Facebook, it actually should save on both of those as well. But the main repository of these is going to be on the YouTube channel. So be sure to join the YouTube channel, subscribe, and know when we go live every time we go live. We're going to have Patrick today talk about one of the main projects that we're working on as part of Volition and a standalone. It's called GamerCert. So, Patrick, let's talk about GamerCert.
Let's do that. And a bit of background for anybody who cares to watch. We've been having weekly meetings pretty much since the inception of the project, 4 or 5 years ago. And eventually said we should make use of these. We should stream these and record them for posterity's sake. Thus these live broadcasts. So yeah, GamerCert. I'm just going to touch on it today since we only have a few minutes. It's really so to back up a bit. When we started the project in late 2017, I thought that in the future, whenever that is, 2019, 2020, surely there would be a rich ecosystem of online identity providers, and by that I mean things like an Estonian e-citizenship, where you can get a centrally issued set of credentials, tie that to your private key via a certificate, and use it to sign documents and gain access to online spaces. So as it turned out, I was wrong, and that is only now beginning to emerge, and in a very still kind of nascent way. I just saw today Polygon announced their identity solution for voting, and I looked at that a few months ago with some they built kind of a protocol. I'm still not sure how the claims get issued. I'm still not sure how they're enforcing uniqueness. I know they're using ZK proofs to preserve privacy, and that's great, for them. Anyway, long story short, we need a source of identity for Volition. Since we are proof of identity, we don't work. Actually, if you don't have identity, we can just be a permissioned, proof of authority chain, unless we have an identity, ecosystem of identity solutions out there. So we had to build one. We built one called GamerCert. It is a separate project. It is a separate company. And I can show you what that is in a few minutes. But before I do that, we should talk a bit about what is identity. That term gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion out there. People don't fully understand.
People don't. And I think even in our language, when we say identity, a lot of times what we mean is, personality, right? Like, I identify as a guy who likes donuts.
Right.
It's really more of my personality. If I go get a mortgage, I can't sign a guy who likes donuts, right? I have to give my name and my social security number. So in my mind, an identity for our purposes anyway really has to come from an authority. An identity arises from the state, right? Or a collective who look at you and decide, that's you. We can find you as an individual.
Who you are, we know you.
We know you. And so I guess that's another way of saying the state, because the state represents the entire, population of citizens. So I get, the thinking there is like, well, really, legally, this is like the legal sense of identity, not the informal sense of identity or the social sense, but legally, an identity is something that identifies you uniquely, and importantly, I can use that identity to do stuff like sue you or throw you in jail. Okay, and so there has to be a precedent recognized by the state. And so again, people out there right now, for example, on crypto, throwing around ideas like, self-sovereign identity, right? But that's not an identity. You can't just make up an identity and necessarily expect the state to recognize that. So in my mind, there's really that's a contradiction in terms. people are also doing stuff like oh, let's scan people's retinas, right? That's proof of personhood, right? Some yahoos built a metal orb that can scan a retina, and they got $11 billion from Andreessen Horowitz to travel the world scanning retinas. And maybe retinas are unique. Maybe AI can't generate a realistic retina. Who knows? Maybe your retinas never change. I don't know anything about retinas. But what I do know is that a retina also is not recognized by most courts or jurisdictions. You can't sue the owner of a particular retina or the hash of a retina, right? You have to have their name, and so you have to have their name in the contract. So identity. So for me, identity is tied directly to your government issued credentials and nothing else, because nothing else is recognized by a court. That ties into what the kids call KYC. KYC stands for Know Your Customer.
Yep.
You'll hear that a lot. Know Your Customer is a mandate of government agencies such as FinCEN. They say, look, if you're going to transact money for people above a certain threshold, you have to know who they are. You have to make sure they're not, crime lords or terrorists or whatever. So you got to know your customer. Right. You know your customer based on their state-issued identity. So, all right. So what I'm building with this is we need a way to know your customer. We need a way to tie that identity information to a digital identity. That means a digital certificate. Okay, that's the baseline. Well, it'd be great if we could do that in a way that preserves people's privacy. Okay, so really, from my perspective, I just need to know that somebody knows who you are, and that if you do something bad, we can come find you somehow. I don't need, as long as you're operating within the agreement, we don't need to actually know who you are specifically. So that's not necessarily a ZK proof. This is simply a anonymity, privacy preserving layer. All right.
It's another pseudo and anonymous type concept. I mean, Bitcoin's called pseudo anonymous, but you could still narrow it down to somebody. So this is kind of like a concept like that, where you can have an anonymous front, but it's not totally anonymous because there is a tie to you legally.
That's right. I'm calling it, and we'll see if this catches on. I'm calling it Delegated KYC.
Okay, that's not bad though. That's right. I like that.
So you can have identity fiduciary who's responsible for protecting your anonymity.
Right.
But you can give them permission. You can say, look, in this particular case, if a court orders you to do so, you may reveal my identity to the court in this one instance. Okay. Now, if it's anonymous, then we have this idea of multiple identities in different contexts, right? Because you might want one identity or one anonymized identity profile for Twitter, one for Facebook, one for each domain in which you are online. Each online space you participate in, you might want a separate.
I mean, it's kind of back in the old days of the internet, you would have your different chat or IRC handles based on the community you're in, your Reddit handle, whatever. That way you're able to identify with your community. They can identify you, but you're still anonymous.
That's right. And you can make a strong promise because you've gone through KYC. You can say, this is my only identity in this community forever and ever, even though I change my username.
Which is huge, because that's huge. That's something we didn't have back in the early days of the internet. People could make hundreds of accounts all in the same community and catfish you or pretend to be somebody different, or even converse with themselves to create a dialogue that isn't true.
That's right. That would be exactly a Sybil attack, right?
Yep.
In essence. So yeah, there are a lot of implications to this. Let me share my screen, and I'll see if this comes up.
Yeah, I think that's a very needed tool with the way society and online communities are going, and preserving that anonymity within a community, but then still being responsible for the content you produce is I think that's important, and it will make for better communities for sure.
I agree. I'm having difficulty sharing my screen.
I think Ken, you have to share it for him. But
it's not coming up.
No.
This browser is not allowed.
Oh, it's your browser.
You know, every time I for whatever reason, the setting is not particularly sticky. I don't know if it's a Chrome thing or a OS 10 thing, but I frequently find myself unable again to share screens, even though that's something we do, you know,
Wild.
all the time. So I thought we were set. All right, I'm gonna try one more time.
You actually raised, Patrick, I know you're busy, but you actually raised an interesting point I didn't think about, which when you said delegated, which was you know, you can choose an authority, or let's say a lawyer or someone, to manage your identities for you, right? So you have some sort of relationship with this entity. It could be you could delegate identities, but you could elect someone else to delegate your identities to manage your identities online, and to, you know, be that another arm's length between you and the communities in which you're using your identity. Sort of like a registered agent.
That's sort of like a registered agent. I was surprised, you know, when I started talking to our attorneys about the terms of service for GamerCert and all the use cases. I was a little surprised that that wasn't a thing. I thought, you know, almost any place you can incorporate a company, a lot of times they require you to have a registered agent. You're not even necessarily. I guess you can be your own registered agent, but 9 times out of 10, you know, if you're going and incorporating in Delaware, you know, you're going to have an agent there to accept service. There you go. Thank you for doing that. So anybody who's coming back to this and watching, you can go to https gamercert.com. This is, so you'll notice right off the bat, this says nothing about crypto. This says nothing about blockchain. We're positioning this, and by we I mean us as authors. Like I said, GamerCert is its own entity, and is meant as a here's a for instance, you know, in this future coming ecosystem of identity providers. You know, GamerCert's deal is privacy, just like it says here, privacy preserving blue check. So that turns out that's useful, you know, if you want to join a DAO or you want to be a miner and a proof of identity, you know, ledger like Volition, great. But even ahead of that, just in terms of making online spaces safer, right? There's a primary use case there. And so what I want to direct everyone to, well, first off, I hope you'll sign up for the beta. Our friend, one of our beloved community members was our patient zero for this, but the beta is available now, and hopefully we'll join it as good. Right, it is free. There are a lot of, so I should differentiate this from there are a lot of services out there that are kind of KYC as a service, and they just verify that you have credentials. They don't issue an identity. They don't issue a certificate. So the world is lousy with these KYC as a service vendors. Very few vendors out there issue identities or certificates. I couldn't find any when I started this. Admittedly, I did not look too hard. There was one ID.me, I believe, issues something like an identity, but their whole positioning is B2B. So it's very much, you know, like I called them and they were like, yeah, we'd love to work with you guys. It's only $20,000 a month or whatever it is, and you only pay $5 for every identity. So you know, the whole B2B thing doesn't make sense. This is your identity. You know, the analogy is you're going to go to the DMV, you're going to get your driver's license. Now you can go to the bar. The bar doesn't pay you to get a driver's license, right? That's your driver's license. Same for something like TSA Pre. You want to not have to go through the Airport security, as onerously as everybody else, you go get your TSA pre. Now you can skip the line. So this is very much a pay a couple bucks, get your identity, and then the world is your oyster. You can skip the line anywhere where your identity needs to be verified. So what I really want to, so obviously go. It's a very simple service. We're sponsoring identities for people. So the first, I don't know, a couple hundred or thousand people who sign up. Actually, first couple hundred or thousand, not the first couple 100,000, but the first couple hundred or thousand people who sign up, we'll pay the verification fee, and then once it's out of beta, it'll be a nominal couple bucks. Again, hopefully there'll be multiple services like this for the world. Like I said, this is really a for instance service. It all works. It's very robust. But for the health of the world, there should be an ecosystem of these. What I want to really direct your attention to, though, obviously read the FAQ, read the guarantees. There's a lot in there about how this service preserves your anonymity even behind the scenes of GamerCert.
Right.
GamerCert itself, for example, cannot link your PII, your personally identifying information, to any identity you create, which might sound contradictory, but by creating a zero knowledge architecture, we can ensure that we can look at your credentials, but we have no idea which identities you are creating using those, right? Unless you explicitly link that back or give us permission. So what I want to address here, everybody, is read the FAQ, read the guarantees, but very important, look at the terms of service. So if you don't mind opening those up. So the terms of service, hey, it's a dry read, but I think it's really important. I wrote a lot of this and handed it to our attorney, and the reason I did that is a lot of this explains who the different users are for GamerCert and how they might use it, and how we want it to be used and not be used. And very importantly in here, we define a means by which GamerCert accepts a fiduciary obligation to its customers. I don't know if other services are doing this. In my mind, this is key. It's not enough to be a commercial service. We have to go further and really accept that fiduciary duty. And of course, fiduciary duty has a bunch of implications, the very highest standard of trust. And there's a lot of liability for GamerCert by agreeing to become your fiduciary. And so you can read up on fiduciary law and what that means. But if you hire, if you hire an agent, like you hire a lawyer or a real estate agent, they are, that's an example of a fiduciary duty, right? They are bound by law to support your interests. And so we talk about all the different ways this can be used by you, the user, by third-party sites, for example, that want to use it to make their forums safer. We talk about how you can only use this product to limit access in very specific ways. We don't want people to use this to just arbitrarily discriminate against people. Right. So read that. Understand the fiduciary duty from GamerCert. Understand all the use cases. Join the beta. This will be like I said, there may be other services like this. I'd love to have this be an identity provider for the thing that Polygon is doing, or also integrate Polygon's thing with Volition. But as a proof of identity ledger for Volition, this will be a must. Certainly as a miner, and also as a user. Finally, I know we're running out of time. Last thing I want to stress is that you can create a couple different kinds of identity with GamerCert. You can create what we're calling just a plain identity that actually doesn't reveal anything about you other than that you are unique, right? It's just an identity fingerprint and really nothing else. But you can also create what we're calling a full recourse identity. And a full recourse identity basically gives GamerCert the permission to unmask you if ordered to do so by a court. And so if you're a miner, for example, if you're a validator, in a distributed ledger, you'll need a full recourse identity because you're taking on a responsibility to transact,
Right.
perform financial transactions for people. So yeah, the chain's Byzantine fault tolerant. That's great. Just so we'd love to be able to find you if you try to defraud end users. So all right, blah 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 blah.
And this all kind of falls back into just being a compliant chain as well. If you want to be a compliant chain, you'll probably need something like this with the full exposure for your identity.
Yeah, and all this stuff is emerging now. The laws are being written as we work. So I say, okay, well, how do you be compliant but also preserve anonymity? Well, you have to have something like this. When I talk about delegated KYC right now, FinCEN probably says to banks, no, you can't let a third party vouch for a person. You personally have to do it, which means you have to give your info to every single place you're doing KYC. There's not really a legal recognition of delegated KYC, right? But there should be. You should be able to just get identified with one authority. Ideally, that authority should be the state. They should issue you a certificate, and then that's good everywhere. Why do you have to go through the whole KYC process every single time?
Right.
Maybe the state can delegate KYC to itself, and GamerCert will just sail off into the sunset, and you'll just use your state-issued, cert for everything. I don't know.
Well, with the last minute or two, can we just can you sort of very plainly, I guess, connect GamerCert to Volition? Why? Just exactly how is the sort of like basics, like about it? How do you? What's it for, and what do you do, and who needs it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, Volition uses proof of identity, not proof of authority, not proof of work, not proof of personhood, right? So, proof of identity is prove that you've gone through KYC. Promise, prove to us that not us, but the users of the ledger, that they can come and find you if something goes wrong. So you basically, were this a corporate, were these corporations, we'd say, well, incorporate in some jurisdiction, get a registered agent, and then that registered agent is your representative. In this case, you're an individual. So to be a miner and or validator, whatever you want to call it, you have to have an identity. You may be anonymized, but that anonymity needs to be waived if a court orders it. Okay, so you need a full recourse identity. That's first and foremost. Second, and this really depends on per project, per ledger, because we're doing it this way. We can have per project ledgers. We don't have to build just one giant ledger to rule them all, right? So, for example, for Volition CCG, there's a ledger, for all the other stuff we want to play with, there will be a separate ledger run by maybe even a tiny pool of miners, maybe 5 or 6 miners, who knows. And on a per ledger basis, we can do stuff like say, look, if you sign up with a proven identity, even if it is not a full recourse identity, even if it just is a unique identity, right? So full recourse means we can find you, even if you can't be found, okay? If you just show us you're unique and have an identity, we can do stuff like give you a grant of whatever on-chain currency there is. So that could be a great means of voting for governance. It can be a great means of distributing currency, one per person. And I want to stress also this stuff, every single one of these there is no perfect solution for any of this, right? There's going to be some variance there, so all of these solutions are meant to be kind of good enough, right? It's like the idea of the 50% attack, as long as we have some threshold, right, where most of the identities are valid, all right, and so that remains to be seen. My theory is that identity theft is expensive and hard to do at scale. And that the online KYC, that use live sessions and can cross-check against fraud databases are probably going to be pretty good. but all that remains to be seen. I will finally say that identity theft, unlike trying to do a 51% attack, identity theft is most certainly a crime. There's no ambiguity there. So at least by definition, anybody attacking with identity theft is clearly a criminal, federally or even internationally. So the stakes are a bit higher, I think, than just doing your plain vanilla DDoS type attack.
Oh, cool.
So we're running up on our 30-minute mark here soon. And I basically just want to wrap it up. We're going to be doing these. We're going to be trying to do these every week. We'll be doing Wednesdays, the same time, and Thursdays. Today's Thursday. It's been a long week. So Thursdays at the same time. If you have any questions, you're watching this stream later on, and you have any questions about it, we'll keep an eye on all the comments for the stream, and we'll be able to address them next week or on our next stream. And get involved in the communities, and we can bring you on the stream, and you can talk, give your perspective as well. Like I said, this is trying to open up our inner workings and basically our weekly meetings to the community, and then invite the community in to give us their insight, their feedback, educate us on things they may know, and ask questions to learn from us on what we're doing. So anybody else have anything they want to say before we end this broadcast?
This is such an into the deep end kind of thing, and something so weird and orthogonal actually to Volition. We haven't talked. Why are we doing Volition? Where's the why didn't we do an ICO? Why aren't we issuing NFTs on OpenSea? Why aren't we building on ETH? Why are we all multimillionaires right now? I don't know. All these are things I wonder about every day. But, we haven't really this isn't the best. This is the first broadcast, but not necessarily the introductory broadcast that people new to the project.
That gives people the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. So.
Yeah.
Hopefully this mystifies people. And
we're dropping people right in media res.
Yes.
There's a lot of history here. The Discord's quite been pretty active for a long time. So yeah, there's a lot here. So if you're just coming into this, hopefully.
Yeah, sorry for it being the deep end, but
yeah.
Just like I said before, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and that will give you the ability to know when we put up new ones, and you can get caught back up. And again, post your questions. That is super important. If you have specific questions, let us know, and we'll get you caught up by answering those questions.
Cool.
All right, guys. So I guess we'll do this again next week. And thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.